Welcome back. It's the NW Sportscast. We're talking Seahawks. I had a post game yesterday, but today I'm going to give some more thoughts and then I'm going to ask Drew to respond to those thoughts. So I prepared a little bit
Okay.
of a just a statement on the current state of the team, and I would like Drew to respond when I'm done. So here we go. It's crazy how much people will stay on a broken ship. The Seahawks have no identity. They haven't had an identity all season. How do we want to win? That's been the constant question since 2016. Lack of identity leads to lack of consistency, and it all starts from the top. I love Pete Carroll. He's been an amazing head coach, but everyone has to retire eventually. I don't know if it's a good look to fire him, but he's the oldest head coach in the league, and he's clearly struggling. The Seahawks have not had an above average defense since the Legion of Boom broke up. That was like 2016. Pete is supposed to be a defensive guru, yet his side of the ball has been terribly inconsistent. We want to win with defense, but our defense is never good, even with all the talent. The Seahawks offense has had some good stretches of play. Russ and Gino have both played well at times. However, we've been hearing the same problems for the past 8 seasons. Why can't we run the ball? Why does the O-line stink? Do we need a new offensive coordinator? Having the same problems for 8 seasons and being unable to correct them is a sign of stagnancy. Every year with Russ, we complained about the O-line. And now, same thing with Gino. Every year with Russ, we questioned, why can't we run the ball? Now it's the same. Charbonnet, K9, what do they get? 65 yards. And every year with Russ, it was, oh, do we need to fire Schottenheimer? Do we need to fire Rabel? Oh, do we need to fire Waldron? It's always the same story with our offensive coordinators. And it pains because there's a ton of talent in this team. You have 3 really good receivers. You have 2 young, really excellent running backs, a defense that is 5th highest paid in the league. And I know Jamal and Diggs haven't been playing well and Bobby's getting older, but they're still very talented players. Like, you can't say those guys are just not good. Leonard Williams, Reek Spoon, the best young cornerbacks in the league, I believe. And what do we have to show for it? 4 straight losses, 1-5 in our last 6, 1-4 this year against our own division, 4-2 against losing teams, 2-5 against winning teams. And last year, same thing. We beat up on the bad teams and we lost all the good ones. We got lucky last year. The NFC was really weak, and then we got blown away in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not saying that wasn't fun last year. It was fun, but making the 7th seed shouldn't be the yearly goal. You're expected to improve as the players on your team gain experience and the coaching staff gels together. Right now, it would take a miracle to make the playoffs again. The odds of making the playoffs aren't great because we don't have tiebreakers over the Rams, Vikings, or Packers. So we need all of them to lose twice and for us to win 3 times. That's probably not going to happen, and it's bad if we miss the playoffs. So people say, oh, Levi, you're overreacting. You need to calm down. The 49ers, they're the best team in the league. Stop acting like the sky is falling. But I say this, it's not just the 49ers. We lost twice to the Rams. We barely scraped by against a 1-win Cardinals team, and it took us a last-minute touchdown to beat the Browns, who had no Nick Chubb and no Deshaun Watson. Even the Panthers played us closer than they've played in any other game. We're just not that good anymore. And while it is fun to beat up on the bad teams like the Cardinals and the Giants, oh, we dropped 21 against the Giants, it's more fun to beat the actual good teams. I don't understand why fans are okay with losing every time we play a team with a better record. That's called mediocre. It's called stuck in the mud. Pete Carroll's never going to be the coach of a bad team. He's never going to lose 12 games and be the worst team in the league. That's not who he is. But I also don't think he's going to make it back to the Super Bowl. He's running an outdated defensive scheme, easy to beat, and his culture of winning kind of seems to fall apart. I know people don't want to hear this, but we have not beat the 49ers since Russell Wilson was our quarterback. And if I'm not mistaken, Pete hasn't beat the 49ers ever without Russ. So if you're okay with being 2nd place, 3rd place, sometimes get a wild card depending on how easy the schedule is, always getting great players in the draft, but never putting it all together for a truly dominant season, that's fine. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Pete Carroll and Geno Smith are the best quarterback and coach in the league, and that, I'm just being a hater because I'm not a real fan of the team. That's what a lot of people would say. Personally, I think it's time to move on. I don't think it should be a firing. I think it's a similar situation to Bill Belichick. I would ask that Pete and the Seahawks could kind of mutually agree that he's getting old. It's time to retire. Go hang out with your grandkids. You deserve it. Maybe come in as like an assistant to help give some motivational speeches, but no longer as head coach. I love this team and I want them to get to a place where they have a real chance at winning the Super Bowl. In my opinion, that should be every team's goal every year. Either the goal is to win the Super Bowl or the goal is to build up to a point where you can win it soon. Right now, we're in the same place that we were in the last years of Russ. Lots of talent, inability to get big wins. When the offense plays well, defense doesn't play well. When the defense plays well, the offense doesn't play well. Inconsistency rules. There's no fundamental identity anymore. The only difference now is without Russ, we're less clutch, and we no longer play well in the fourth quarter. Russ always showed up in the fourth quarter, motivated his teammates to do the same. That's the one thing I think that kind of sets him apart. He turned a few of those losses into wins with those dramatic comebacks, but ultimately, when it was the let Russ cook days, he was never enough to carry us to the Super Bowl. That's why, despite wishing we still had him, I'm not going to criticize that trade. I do think we needed a new identity. The problem is now, 2 years later, we haven't fixed those problems. We still lack the identity and the direction. We still can't put together a complete game of football. We traded Russ to clear salary, but we still have a super high salary. We're up against the cap again now. And now we no longer win those close games in the fourth quarter like we used to. So the answer I say is to move on. Start fresh, the new coaches who can draft a new quarterback. We still have a ton of young talent. So I'm not saying tear it all down, because I think in a few years, these guys like Jackson and even DK, a lot of people want to trade DK. I don't think we should. And Reek and Spoon and those guys and Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, I think in a few years, those guys are going to be championship caliber players, but if only with the right leadership. So Drew, I'm going to give you the floor. I know that was a lot.
Yeah, you made a lot of good points there. Obviously this team has been mediocre, and that's the word I would give them. I would agree with that. Pete Carroll's a defensive mind in the NFL. That's what he prides himself on. This defense has not been great. The offense hasn't been much better. It's been probably worse. There's a lot of talent on this roster, so I understand where you're coming from. The thing I might disagree a little bit with you is that right now I would argue that not having a capable quarterback is the bigger issue. Um, if you think that we can get Pete Carroll gone and draft a new quarterback, that'd be great. I actually do think that'd be the way to go. But I think the Seahawks are going to draft a rookie quarterback and give Pete Carroll another shot with a rookie quarterback. And to Pete Carroll's credit, he took a third round quarterback in Russell Wilson back in 2012. And he did make something out of that in 2 years. So listen, I understand where you're coming from. I think Pete Carroll is getting kind of old, but I would still have Pete Carroll over a lot of the coaches in the NFL. I would have him over Bill Belichick right now, and he's known as the best coach ever. So there's a lot, there's a lot of good points you made, Levi, and most of them I'm going to agree with. I think it's time to move on from Pete Carroll very soon. Is it this year? Maybe. I'm not going to entirely disagree with you on that. This team is not, it doesn't have that same energy and that same fire I usually see out of my Seahawk teams. It seems like we're kind of laying down and dying towards the end of the season here. I know we played good against the Cowboys and it was a 1 point loss against the Rams. I understand all that. And if you flip those two games, all of a sudden we're in a lot better position. But you make a lot of good points, Levi. We're not winning the close games. The defense isn't playing well. And it might be time to move on from Pete Carroll. If the question was, do you think we will? I don't think we will. I don't know if you think we will either. I'm guessing you don't.
No, I don't think we will. I think
Yeah.
we should.
Yes.
I don't
And
think
I understand where you're coming from about should. And if you could find me, another coach that can completely, if you can give me a Shanahan, like obviously that's no brainer, but there's a lot of bad hirings in the NFL and it's risky. I think the upside is obviously there for a new coach. The upside is winning a Super Bowl. And you could argue that staying mediocre is worse than potentially getting a new head coach and making the Super Bowl or getting a new head coach and going, 6-12 or whatever, or 6-11. So I think that the Seahawks are not going to do it. Would I do it? I'm still leaning no this year. I just think that we have such a young group of guys that getting a new head coach might be detriment to the team, but it's a tough position for sure. And I think that's kind of what the Seahawks organization also has to deal with. It comes back to me to Geno Smith. I think we need a new quarterback. Let's see what Pete Carroll's got with the rookie quarterback, and then I can kind of make that assumption. But I like your thoughts. I understand you're frustrated, but when you look at the losses in the last 3 games, you can't be mad at like they've lost the Niners twice and the Cowboys. I understand we need to beat good teams, tend to, being a great team. I understand that, but I would argue that those wins are not, you know, even with the best coach in the league. If you have Geno Smith at your helm, in this case Drew Lock last week, I just don't see how likely that is to get a win despite the head coach situation. So I like where you came from for sure, but I would disagree in a few aspects, especially at the quarterback.
I mean, I also think you need to get a new quarterback. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I just when do you move on? Like that's the question because people I know and like as a Seahawks fan, it's you have to separate head from heart because in my heart, I want Pete Carroll to be there till he dies, right? Because he's fun and he brings the team a lot of energy and he makes the games really enjoyable, you know? But eventually it comes to a point where it's like, how long do we want to be this team that gets to the wild card every other season?
But
And
Levi, he has shown in the past we can make the Super Bowl. So you really think we're just
that
that
okay,
outdated?
well, that was with the one of the greatest defenses of all time.
That's
And
partially because of what Pete Carroll did, in my opinion,
it
with
is.
that.
And since Dan Quinn, that coordinator, left our team, the defense has never been the same. And Dan Quinn has gone on to be the coach of some really good other defenses.
I agree. I
Does
think
make
there's a
me
few
wonder,
things
was it more Pete or was it more Dan?
I would argue, Pete. I mean, there's a few things in this defense that I think would be easy fixes going into
And
next
why
year
don't
that
we make them?
because we don't have the pieces right now. Like, okay, yeah, Jamal Adams is playing really bad. Would you rather have Julian Love out there? Maybe,
No,
but
no.
he's not great
Not the
either.
way
So
with Heath playing.
what do you want? What do you want Pete Carroll to do? To get a better safety? Like Bobby Wagner, teams are exploiting how slow he is in the middle of the field right now.
Yeah.
You know how many drag and crossing routes are just going right over Bobby Wagner's face? And a Debo Samuel kind of catches the ball a couple of steps ahead of Bobby Wagner and he's just gone. I mean, it's happening nonstop. What do you want? You want to tell Bobby Wagner to get faster? Of course not. He's a declining player. I love Bobby. I'm glad he's on this team this year, but he's definitely not the player he once was. What do you want Pete Carroll to
So
want
then
Pete
would you
Carroll to tell
say
Boye Mafe and Leonard Williams to pressure Brock Purdy more? And that could be part of the scheme. So the answer could be yes. The answer could be that the defensive scheme is outdated and this kind of nickel scheme slash not letting people beat you over the top on safeties is outdated, but Jamal Adams is playing absolutely awful. And at
yeah,
some
he
point,
is.
you have to put blame on the players.
But Jamal Adams has also never been good at coverage. So the fact that we
Yeah.
keep throwing him out there in coverage, that I think is a little bit
But
of
what
a
do you
problem.
keep? But
When we had
if you
Earl
play
Thomas,
two high safeties,
it
what's
made
the other
more sense.
option?
Maybe we don't play two high safety. I mean, when we had Earl Thomas, it made sense to drop our safeties back into coverage because Earl Thomas could do that at a really high level.
But Quandre Diggs isn't
Jamal
great at that
Adams
either.
has never shown me this. So
Quandre Diggs is not great at that either.
yeah, and he used to be better, but this season Diggs hasn't been great either. But I'm saying, so do you think in this case it's John Schneider who needs to give him a better personnel to work with? because the way I see it, it's like we have a bunch of guys who have been at Pro Bowl levels very recently. Like Quandre was a Pro Bowler 3 years in a row, and all of a sudden this year he's gotten a lot worse. I don't know.
So you think that's Clint Hurt maybe? Like,
Well, maybe you blame Clint Hurt, but again, this is the third, fourth. Is this? I think this is the fourth defensive coordinator we've had now, and since Dan Quinn, it hasn't been very good. So it's like,
I
is it the
understand where you're coming
coordinator
from,
or is
Levi.
it the head coach? I don't know. I also know that I think Pete does put a lot of input into the personnel. Maybe he can keep coaching, but maybe he needs to get out of personnel. I don't know, because I like when I'm thinking like did they really think not having a single linebacker who's good at coverage was going to be a smart choice? Like going into the season, did they really think that? It confuses me because like we know Bobby and Jordan Brooks are not going to be able to drop into coverage, and
Yeah,
yet
we
those are the
consistently
guys.
put them into coverage. I
Those are
know.
the guys we're putting
I
into
agree.
coverage. So it's like,
I agree.
is maybe it's a personnel issue. I don't know, but at some point you have to look at it and be like, I know these guys are talented football players. I don't think they're in the best position for them. Like Jamal, we should utilize him more like we did before his big injury.
So, but that again,
Gosh,
Pete Carroll has shown that he's been able to use Jamal effectively, and now all of a sudden Jamal is not being used effectively. Do you think that's Pete Carroll's fault, or do you think Jamal Adams has just declined after two
maybe he's
injuries?
declared. I don't know.
I think the
I
answer is
do. I
obvious.
right now. Here's the question. Right now, would you want Jamal on the team next year?
The way he's playing,
Yeah,
no.
I would agree. I don't think I'd want him.
I mean, if you can somehow get 4 or 5 sacks out of him and play him as more of like a linebacker, which I think we should do. By the way, I don't really see like we might as well just throw him in there. It's not like our linebackers are doing really good right now. I mean, I guess we can try that out. I mean, okay, it's kind of also hard to overreact because we're playing like the 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers last 3 weeks. That's Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. Those are like quite literally the MVP favorites right now. I understand like this defense isn't looking good, but the 49ers and Cowboys just absolutely like
On our defense also got
they
cut off by Sam Howell. So it's like, I don't think it's a 49ers problem. I think it's a overall the defense problem.
I mean Sam Howell's played good football this year.
And his team's 4-8. So it's like,
I
I don't.
understand. I'm really not trying to play devil's advocate, but like our losses this year have been to two bad losses against the Rams, but in those games, the Rams scored 17 points, which is, I would say, the defense played good in that game. And the first game of the season, the second half kind of got out of hand. Geno Smith put the defense in really bad positions, and they ended up scoring 30. We held the Giants to 3, Bengals 17. I know it was a backup there. Browns, another backup to 20. Obviously, we haven't been playing great, but when we've really gotten blown out, it's been to good teams. Like the Ravens put up 37 on us at home, like in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson playing the best I've seen him play.
I'm not debating that, but I just think that at some point the excuse can't be, well, we lost because they were better. Like at some point you have to
Yeah.
say, I personally think that we should be able to compete in every game. That's my bar. I'm not saying we should win every game, but I don't like when other teams score 30 against
I
you.
know. I would argue that we did compete in this last game.
We kind of did. We didn't the first time we competed against, but on defense specifically, did we compete? We competed for a few drives, and then every time Christian McCaffrey got the ball, it was like, okay, well, he's probably gonna rush for 10 yards.
I know. I know. Again, to play devil's advocate, we've been doing that against a lot of teams this year. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I would agree.
I
I,
just
I think,
I wish we did.
listen, moving on from Pete Carroll could work. I agree with you. I just think like the worst, like a scenario that could definitely happen is in the next 10 years, we go through 6 different NFL coaches, and now we've just lost our core of, Reek and Witherspoon and Metcalf and JSN and all of those guys. So in that case, I would rather just keep Pete Carroll for the next 5 or 6 years, get a quarterback, and let's see how far we can go. But if you find that guy, of course, if you find a Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or and any of those types of offensive minds, I think that could definitely work. But those are very rare. Like, do you have a guy that you're thinking about? Like,
I would like Ben Johnson. And
I
people have told me that Levi, the Seahawks are never gonna get Ben Johnson. Well, I don't see why we'd never get Ben Johnson. I think if our job was open, I think we'd be easily a candidate to get Ben Johnson on this. Ben Johnson from the Lions. I think we'd easily be a candidate. Like people think, oh, we're not an attractive landing spot. I
I
feel
just
like we kind of are an attractive landing spot, especially with the wide receiver talent we have, and the ability to go out and draft a quarterback. So I
yeah.
do think if we can convince him to come here, I think we could bring in a guy like Ben Johnson, who has proven to be a very efficient offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, for a team that doesn't even really have a star quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff's good. Nobody thinks he's a superstar, and he's got them playing really well. So that's the guy I look at, and people. I guess he's the favorite to land the Chargers job if that comes open. But I don't see why we can't pull it just as good of an argument against the Chargers. The only thing they have against us is Herbert, but we have better receivers, better backs, better O line. I don't know.
Yeah, I think something really attractive also is a, a lot of teams make Super Bowls on quarterbacks with rookie contracts, and
Yeah,
we are more than likely going to be
we're
signing a
going to
guy.
have a quarterback with
Yeah.
rookie, and not
So
something the Chargers.
I would not be surprised in 2 years we're looking at a team that can make the Super Bowl. And I might be crazy to say that, but you see that with the
No,
Bengals.
you're not crazy.
The
We
Bengals
turn it
before
around
they had
all the time.
Joe Burrow, absolutely awful. Then Joe Burrow played in his rookie year, got hurt, and what they had like 11 losses, maybe 10 losses. I don't quite remember, but it was not a great season for the Bengals. And then they made the Super Bowl, and that's because Joe Burrow in his second year, really increased his level of play, as a lot of quarterbacks do in their second year. And he
Yeah.
had a lot of weapons and talent around him because he was on that rookie contract. So I could see in 2 years, you have JSN, Metcalf, and maybe even Lockett still there. You have the best cornerbacks in the league. Let's say we draft a couple of good middle linebackers. I mean, we're really not that far off. So I know everything seems doom and gloom for the Seahawks right now. We might miss the playoffs. And to a certain degree, it is doom and gloom for this year. I mean, we put ourselves in a position where, we have to win 3 or 4 to have a shot. And if we don't win all 4, we have to rely on some other team to lose. So, there's obviously some doubt that Seahawks fans should have. But I also urge everyone watching and listening to remember is the Seahawks are not in a bad spot. Like, I would rather be a Seahawks fan right now than a lot of the teams in the NFL. Like Patriots, like imagine being a Patriots fan right now, or a Giants fan, or a Jets fan. Like, they just dumped all their money into Aaron Rodgers. At least we didn't do that. So there's a lot of still exciting things to be happening. I know it's hard to look at that, but again, I don't know if firing Pete Carroll is the option right now. I think having a quarterback and seeing how that works is probably the safer option. Although the safer option doesn't always win you Super Bowls. So I also see that argument for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately that's where I think I'm a little bit more aggressive than other people, where I would take the gamble because I don't think teams win Super Bowls by playing it safe.
Yeah.
I think that is really a thing that happens in the NFL. Like I
Yeah.
think you take the gamble and look, I would take a couple of failed head coaches and a couple of years of really bad football if that's what it takes to eventually hit on the next really good
Yeah.
one, instead of 6 more years of 9-8, 7-10, 10-7, 8-9, nine and
The
eight.
Bengals is actually a really good comparison to where we are right
Yeah,
now from a few years ago. Andy Dalton, a veteran quarterback that played mediocre, led his team to a few wild card appearances, not
they
much more
had a
than that.
coach who was making the playoffs and
Yeah.
he
And then
won
they
the Super
fire
Bowl.
him. They get Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor
Yeah,
has a bad first year, which could definitely happen if we fire Pete Carroll.
yeah.
Has a bad first year with a rookie quarterback. And then the next year, he kind of figures it out with the second year quarterback. Also, obviously, Joe Burrow is an anomaly. We're most likely, Michael Penix or Bo Nix
Jaden
isn't going to.
Daniels went to LSU, same system.
If we get Jaden Daniels, that'd be amazing, but I don't think we will.
Probably not.
But I could definitely see that happening. So there's obviously, yeah, that could definitely work. And then you could also look at, you could look at a lot of other teams. You look at the Falcons, like they kind of did the same thing, and you see how it's failing. So there's
Yeah, exactly.
definitely.
And the Texans, they took them 4 coaches. They finally think they found one. They
And it took them a couple quarterbacks too.
they
So,
endured a few years of really, really ugly football, but now it seems like they're out of it.
and
So
obviously that was pretty
make that
bad. That
true.
was an ugly game last week, but yes. So yeah, Levi. Okay, I'm going to quickly, like, I want to end this video talking about this game in specific.
All right,
Um,
go
one
for
of
it.
my main takeaways was I really didn't think Drew Lock was that bad. I called into 710 this morning and kind of said that pretty much. I thought the eye test showed me Drew Lock was really not that much worse than Geno Smith. I think he has just as much talent, maybe more.
Really?
That doesn't mean
That's what your eye test said.
that doesn't mean he's a better quarterback. That means that he has more talent. And Josh Allen is the most talented quarterback in the league, but he makes a lot of erratic throws and bad decisions. Drew Lock, I feel like, is kind of a worse Josh Allen. He can run around, he evades pressure from guys, he can throw the ball 60 yards, but just some of the situational lack of awareness, which I think does, he hasn't played an NFL game, a starter in years, a couple years now, but throwing the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, or, he put the ball in harm's way 3 or 4 times, and the 49ers kind of just dropped them. So I do think Geno Smith is the better quarterback. I think Drew Lock might be the more talented one. I don't see the difference. The difference, I see the difference, but the difference is minimal. We scored 16 points. We scored 13 2 weeks ago. I don't know. That's just what I see. But
I'll say this: Drew has the same amount of offensive touchdown passes against the 49ers than Geno does in his entire career. And Drew's only started 1 game and Geno started 4. However, for my eye test, I did not think Drew Lock looked very good. I thought he looked really good on the first drive, and I thought he looked really good on the other scoring drive. And I thought besides that, I was holding my breath a lot, saying,
a
"Really,
lot about.
that's the decision? That's the throw you were gonna make?
Yeah, I
And
agree.
really, you're gonna throw it after running across the line? And you have
We've
five."
seen a lot of that from Geno Smith too, though. I mean, he had like
Yeah,
5 straight games with interception. He put up like 3 points, 10 points.
and to be fair, only one of those picks I'm really and was annoyed about. The second interception, like it's 4th and long, like you're just heaving it at that point. So I don't really count that second.
And it was deflected. From I don't know who was rushing him, but he got his hand on the ball. So
But I think I agree he has talent. He clearly has a good arm. I think there's still a ton to be refined there as far as just like his decision making. I guess you can compare it a little bit to Zach Wilson. I almost think he's Zach Wilson with a slightly better arm, but
Zach Wilson has a pretty nice arm.
Zach Wilson has a nice arm too. That's true.
I remember seeing his throw. Like, do you remember his Hail Mary throw from a few weeks ago?
That's true. Yeah.
Rolling to the left, 3 different guys on him, just flick of the wrist, 60 yards. I mean, that was crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I would agree.
I do think that I'm still gonna say I think Geno, if
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
healthy, he's got to be the quarterback. You
I
can't
agree.
get rid of him.
I agree. Last thing,
He
Levi.
may even need to be the starter at the beginning of next year, depending on where we take
Maybe
and who we take.
DK Metcalf got in a little scuffle again. You've been kind of a big DK needs to keep his cool type guy. Kind of reminds me of Jared Kelenic, actually. If you want to make a Mariners comparison,
No, I think
both kind of talented. When they
honestly
go
I'm
off,
fine with
they go
that.
off, but a lot of times they are, kind of they disappear in games, and then they reappear by doing something stupid like kicking a cooler, or that was super dumb of DK pushing. Who was it that he pushed there?
It was Warner, but Warner hit him on the back of the head.
Yeah, I will say Warner definitely initiated
So
that.
I have been somewhat critical, but I think this one, I was just smiling the whole time. I think in this case, you're not
Definitely
costing
blown
your
out of
team,
proportion. Yeah.
you're not costing your team anything. You're gonna lose either way, and you're fed up. You're frustrated. You're playing with intensity, and it's like, yeah, you got hit. DK thought he got cheap shotted. He's gonna take a cheap shot back, and I actually like that
It,
we
it,
play with this kind of chippiness. So I'm actually not annoyed at all. And I know there's some people who are trade DK, trade. I don't think we should trade our best
No.
receiver. I really think that would be stupid of us to do that. You know, you agree, I assume?
Yeah, I'm more mad about how he handled the rest of the game when he wasn't targeted. He was kind of throwing a hissy fit the whole game. I mean,
Yeah.
I know
Well,
the
he
end.
was. They tried to target him a few times, and then he it almost
I
got
know.
picked off. So
I know
maybe
CBS or whoever had that game was kind of trying to push that narrative. Like,
oh, they were
oh, look at
literally
DK. Look at DK.
every
Oh, he's so
single
mad. He's
play,
so mad. Like,
every
but
single play.
there he was like they constantly showed him getting locked up, and he like at
Yeah,
the end of his route, he was like, but I do like I feel like a lot of wide receivers kind of do that. You know,
yeah.
you're gonna get mad if you think you're open and your quarterback doesn't give you the ball. DK definitely is a little bit more expressive than what I think an NFL wide receiver should be, but
He's a bit of a diva, but I don't think that's
a
the
bit.
difference between DK and Kellenick is that DK I think has earned the right to act like this a little bit because DK actually has proven that he's a really good football player, whereas Kellenick, I personally don't think he ever proved that he was some sort of elite baseball player who's allowed to throw tantrums every time he strikes out because that's who he's always been is a strikeout machine. DK, I'm not mad. I think he wants the ball and wasn't I correct me if I'm wrong, the Jair pick, what their rookie got an interception in the second quarter, I think it was. That throw was to DK, right?
I
Targeted. It was just a really bad throw.
maybe I thought I heard a stat that since his touchdown he didn't get targeted, but I could be
They
wrong.
said that, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't true. I don't know. I saw at least a couple that was in his direction that were just bad
I
throws.
know there's a couple that ended up being flags, but
Yeah, there's a couple flags. Yeah.
I don't.
That was one thing. If you watch my post game, I was very happy.
I did.
Not many flags at all, and I was very happy about that.
I did. I actually did watch. I always watch your post games, Levi. Don't you
Yeah,
fret. Yeah. Well, I think that's all I have.
yeah,
I like your little
all I,
anecdote to start the video, though.
yeah. It's look. I'm the type of person who's I'm a fix it. How can we be better guy?
Yeah, I like it. I liked.
A lot of people want to take the safe route. I respect it. I respect being okay with 10-7. Personally,
I like it,
I
Levi.
would give up bad for. That's what we do for the Mariners every year. It seems like.
Yeah, I would rather. Yeah, I would rather be bad for 10 years, but
Yeah.
try than do whatever the hell the Mariners are doing right now. Last thing.
Speaking of that, I'll have a video out about the Mariners shortly.
Oh, okay, okay. Looking forward to watching that. Really, last thing. I kind of just want to mention this. I like Kyle Shannon's a great coach, but offering a Christmas gift to whoever got under DK Metcalf's skin, like that pisses me off so
Yeah,
much.
that's annoying.
Like, come on, bro. Like, be a little bit more classy than that. Like, you beat us twice. Just move on. Ugh.
5 straight.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll do it though. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching NW Sportscast. Go watch Coast to Coast Sports for other videos about not just Northwest content. Go to Twitter, NW Sportscast, Instagram, NW Sportscast. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy. We're trying to get to 600 by the end of the month. So we better get that going or we're not going to hit that. So that'd be much appreciated. And thank you guys for watching. And also, as always,
Go Hawks.